I'm here at Chicken City, my integrated chicken coop, veggie garden, fruit orchard and compost system, all under the one roof that you can see behind me. And one of the most common questions I got about my tour video, or one of my most requested videos that you guys have asked for, was about when I let the chickens into the veggie room to kind of take it over and work it through in between the seasonal plantings. How does that go? How do I manage it? And what does it look like at the start versus what does it look like at the end? So I have done some filming over the last couple of weeks as I've had the chickens in my big veggie room. So let me show you how that went. I'm here in my annual veg room in Chicken City, and it is kind of the middle of autumn at the moment. Now I've harvested a lot of what I want from this room. There is quite a bit more food in it, but I'm keen to get the chickens in to get them to turn it over so I can plant my winter crops in here before it gets too cold. So I'm going to let them in. They are going to have the time of their absolute lives. You will never see happier chickens. They're going to have a huge feed, turn over the soil, do all the work that they do in here, and then in about 3 or 4 weeks I'll lock them out again and it'll all be ready for planting. Now, before I let them in here, there's just a couple of things I did yesterday. So what I did was I harvested like as much food as I could. Like, I've left a lot of green tomatoes. I think they'll continue to ripen, and because they're quite high up, the chickens won't get to them. If they were desperate, they'd probably start jumping up, but there's plenty to occupy them in the meantime. So I have left a few things on, but all the juicy red tomatoes I have definitely harvested. Here was or is my strawberry trough, and you've probably seen that in my other videos. I don't move that out. I've left that in and I've just covered it in that really thick horticultural fleece I like. I've spoken about this before on videos, but not that thin stuff you get at, like, you know, your entry-level hardware store. Like, this is super thick horticultural fleece, and I use this year after year after year, and it like doesn't tear. And then I just peg it at the bottom, and that'll be enough to stop the chickens causing damage in there. Like, maybe if that was the only thing in your entire garden, that wouldn't be enough to keep them out, but given that they've got plenty of other fun activities, this is not going to be top on their radar. What I did take out of the garden, so this is where my strawberries in the pots usually sit, my little strawberry bench there. I took those pots out because they would absolutely make a mess of those. And because the pots are really small, it's not a big deal. I just take them out that side gate there and just put them outside my greenhouse. And then once the chickens are out of this room, I'll just bring those back in. So you can kind of see the remnants of the watering system there. And I could take the pallet out, but the chickens have fun jumping off and on it, so I leave it in. The other thing I did yesterday is this down here. Looks a bit of a mess now because I've trampled all over it. But this was where I had all my pumpkins. You can kind of see the pumpkin vine. So I harvested all of those, and they can go into the larder for storage. Definitely wouldn't leave them in with the chickens. And they had done their growing, done their ripening anyway. So no point leaving them in. These are berry canes that are coming through from the berry room on the other side. These were dangling down, so I have just tied these up with like baling twine that I save from when I get my bales of straw for the chickens and my bales of hay for the goats and the pony. And then I've just tied them up. So these canes are going to be next year's fruit canes, so I don't want the chickens nibbling on those. So we've just kept them slightly off the ground. And look, they are coming into the annual veg room from the berry cage, which is not ideal, but as you've learnt from me so far, is if you're going to give me food, then you can take up the space, and these berry canes are super productive, so I'm not mad about it. These strawberries on the wall here, I will leave there when I let the chickens in. They don't tend to jump up there unless I've left something underneath that's like given them a platform to jump up. How it's set up now, I don't think anyone's going to get up in there, so that's fine, and makes it really convenient that I can leave them there. So probably everything I did to prepare this room yesterday, I don't know, probably took like 45 minutes, or harvesting the tomatoes took longer. We had heaps of tomatoes to harvest. But the actual like setup, I try and make it as low work as possible. And again, probably the biggest one was getting these strawberries out. Might be able to see over here. Don't know if you can see, but down there is where all the strawberry plants have ended up. It's now been 8 days since I let the chickens in the veg room, and as you can see, it looks quite a bit different than what it did when we started this. Now, the Trombocino zucchini pumpkin situation here, they've left untouched, which is great, so I can age those and then store them like pumpkins over winter. Let's check out these beds over here. Hello, Jack. Can you show us all the good work you've done? So that bed there was full of zucchini plants, and as you can see, it's pretty bare now. The sun might make it a bit difficult. We've got some zucchinis that have probably got too hard of a skins for them to pierce, but if I cut them open, they would eat the seeds inside. And then for the rest of it, it's pretty much trampled, but wouldn't be a big job for me to just pull out the last of those spent crops. Over here, oh, hello, Ruby. Ruby's been quite taken with the chickens and hangs out on the outside of Chicken City so she can see in. Don't you, Possum? Or is it because you want to eat that zucchini plant? Yeah, I think it's the zucchini plant. So the other thing that I left in here was my tomato plants with quite an amount of green tomatoes higher up. So as I expected, these have continued to ripen, and the chickens have caused no problem to these plants at all. Even in the lower areas, you can see they don't like eating tomato plants, which is good because they actually shouldn't eat tomato plants. They never show any interest, and they haven't even scratched around the roots of this guy. So he's still going strong, no problems. So it was a good call to leave the tomatoes in. Same with these tomato plants. We can see this garden bed has had a real going over, as has here. So this is where my pumpkins were just a week ago, my pumpkin vines. And you can see there is no pumpkin vines left there, that's for sure. And, you know, they're leaving their deposits behind. This is what we want. And then this bed up here had potatoes and tomatoes and all sorts of things. Actually, a lot of volunteer plants that I didn't intentionally plant there. And you can see this bed has had a real going over. So again, there's some plants in there that we'll just need to pull out, but that is a pretty easy job, all things considered. They have scratched some of the dirt, some of the soil out of the garden beds. They always do that, but that doesn't bother me because I can come along when I replant this room and like anything on these paths that looks like good soil, I just shovel back up and chuck onto the beds. But I mean, all in all, they haven't done too much damage. I can see a great big dirty hole over here that would have been someone's dust bathing spot. But like I said, there's so much, you know, good stuff on the ground here that I'll just one shovel load back on the bed and that'll be fine. Quite a nice shady spot down there. And then the berries, like you can see, they would usually go for these like tender berry tips here, and that's definitely in reach. But I suppose when there's so much other good stuff, why would you? So the thing is, if you know the priority of the chickens, you can kind of get away with a bit, like leaving the zucchinis in, leaving the tomatoes in, having the berry bushes hanging down a bit low, because they've got so much other low-hanging, excuse the term, easy fruit to grab that they're not really interested in the stuff that they've got to work harder for. And same with this strawberry bed here, strawberry trough, which kind of looks like a corpse, I must admit. Apologies for that. This has been quite loosely covered. They have shown no interest. They could 100% jump up onto here if they wanted, but they've shown no interest in it. And again, because they're going to go for the easiest stuff, when they get down to the point that they would want to get into this bed and jump all over it, that's when I'm going to lock them out of this room again. And if we did do a peek, I don't know. Yeah, okay, we can do a little peek under. Like, our strawberries are very happy under there. So this is a good example of my veggie rotation room system working really well. And this bed here, because it's got the cold frame in, they haven't even got into that. And that would be no effort whatsoever when you've got the pellet right next to it for them to jump into. But like I said, when there's easier things to go at, they'll stick with the easy things, so we can use that to our advantage. And one last note on running a system like this and having your chickens do the cleanup in your veggie garden. If it had been really wet and humid and I had a lot of fallen fruit, like tomatoes especially, that had gone moldy, it wouldn't be appropriate to let my chickens in and let them have at it, basically. Moldy food is not something that you should let your chickens eat. It's incredibly dangerous to them. If they get botulism, it's awful and usually results in death. So if I had been letting them in here and we did have a lot of spoiled fruit that was going moldy, what I would have done is I would have gone around and just done a really, I don't want to say quick, but, a bit of a clean up of spoiled fruit and just chucked that out, not even put it in the compost bin where the chickens can access, but actually removed it completely from Chicken City. So that's just something to be aware of. This year, it's been quite dry, so there was really nothing that was moldy. And even like these zucchinis that have been left over that I obviously missed in the harvest, like they're not moldy. Like there's no real mold risk at the moment. But other seasons when we've had a really wet autumn, I have found quite a lot of moldy produce. So I just get a bucket and some gloves and a scoop and go around and pick that all up before I let the chickens in. So it's really important as chicken keepers, if it's too moldy for you to eat, it's too moldy for your chickens to eat. And this goes for everything, not just letting them in your veggie garden, but also any food scraps you might feed them from the house. Do not feed them moldy food. I see people feeding their chickens moldy bread all the time. It's not good for them. So please, please, please do not do that, and just be aware of moldy food in your veggie garden. Now, if we go around to the fruit room over here, something I did last week when I let the chickens in the veggie room was actually shut the door to the fruit room. So I only ever give them access to one room at a time, and this helps to rest the soil and for some of those plants to kind of reestablish themselves, and even some weeds to grow, because we like the weeds as free chicken food. I'm in the fruit room, and this is going to give this a really good opportunity to regenerate. And what you'll see if I can get down to a bit of earth, is we've got all these little seedlings popping up. Now, when the chickens have access to this room, there is never, ever a little green seedling popping up like that, and certainly not a whole floor of it like what we've got here. And this is good, because then when they come back in, we've got way more food available to them, and they've got way more enrichment and entertainment picking out all these little sprouters. So that might not look life-changing to you, these tiny, tiny, tiny bits of green, but trust me, 9 months of the year when they're in this room, there is no little green to be seen. So this does show what an amazing job they do of keeping this space weeded. And you can see how just green and lush it is at the moment. I love it. It's a shame to not have them in here, but just because it's so fun for them. But when they do come back in, which will probably be like a week or two, they're going to have a whole new adventure for them. So, you know, a big part of chicken keeping is just keeping your chickens entertained. And entertained chickens are happy, they're healthy, and they're not destructive. So yeah, in conclusion, when you let them in one area, you need to lock off another area to let that ground replenish. And even if this was something you were doing like on grass or in a paddock, you know, you would section off a smaller area for them, let them do their work, and then you'd block that area off to let it regenerate. That's really the key, is to not have chickens or any animals, grazing animals really, in the same place 24/7. So there you have it. That is how I manage the chicken rotational through the rooms. And like I said, even if you don't have a chicken city, however you're managing your chicken rotation system, I hope this gives you an idea. Or maybe you're not doing a chicken rotation system and this inspires you to do so. So let me know in the comments if you found this helpful and what other videos you'd like to see, because I love making content that is helpful to people. So tell me what is helpful to you. Thanks.